Dr. Joseph W. Daniels III.
Dr. Daniels is an enthusiastic scholar, leader, mentor, and community builder. He earned his PhD in civil engineering at the University of Arkansas, studying heated pavement system technology for airfield pavement de-icing and anti-icing. He incorporated sustainable practices and renewable energies to his research, approach cost efficiency, system longevity, and environmental protection. He is currently working as a design engineer. At the University of Arkansas, Joe served 2 terms as president of the Black Graduate Student Association. As president, Joseph hosted Tapestry, Courageous Conversations About Race, offering a platform for students, faculty, staff, and community members to discuss racial and social justice issues. He also assisted in planning and coordination of the 2016 and 2017 Attracting Intelligent Minds Conference, a conference specifically aimed to recruit top African American students at the U of A graduate program. Joe believes in building community through social justice, economic empowerment, and intentional relationship building through an initiative called Build Community Through Love. He celebrates 1 year of marriage with his beautiful bride, Tiffany. He is a native of Silver Springs, Maryland. Please join us in welcoming the keynote speaker.
I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it. But it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give an account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but an eternity is in it. These are the wise words of the late great Dr. Benjamin Mays. He talks about this precious thing called time. You see, time is a non-renewable resource, and like Benjamin Franklin once said, lost time can never be found again. Greetings. It's good to see you. I'm very happy to be here. This is my second time doing this gig. I'm very nervous. I haven't spoken in front of people in a few months, but I'm very happy to see all the faces here in this room today, celebrating a great man, a great visionary, a great leader in our country. I work from the initiative Build Community Through Love, building community through love, through agape love, a love that seeks goodwill for all mankind, a love that is always in action, a love that is looking to do something that's not always in our best interest, but in the best interest of our brothers and sisters, a love like Jesus Christ modeled for all of us to do every single day. And so I left my day job today working as a structural design engineer, and a part of design looks at steel construction. Is there any engineers in the building today? Any civil engineers in the building today? My God. So you'll learn this at some point. But you need to understand and know that in steel construction, you got your beams, you have your girders, you have your columns, and all those are great. But what I learned in school, I learned about the beams, the girders, and the columns in undergrad. It wasn't until I got to grad school that I learned about the connections, because the connections are the most vital part of a building. If the connections aren't sturdy, aren't tight, aren't designed to withstand the load, the entire building fails. What does that mean about community? If our community is only built using girders and columns and beams, but we have not taken into account what it looks like to be connected, we find ourselves as pieces of rubble on a field, but nothing gets erected. So take your arms and lock them next to your neighbor. And let's see what this feels like to be connected. Let's see what it feels like to be connected. Everybody got it? What does it feel like? You feel stronger, don't you? You feel like you have to be stretched a little bit to take into account the person next to you, because the person next to you may not be the same stature, the same figure, the same height in the seat, but you're connected, you're holding each other up. Just imagine what that looks like in community. Imagine what Dr. King envisioned in the work that he and the SCLC envisioned in trying to make sure that we maintain our connectivity. I think Brian Stevenson says it best. He talks about being proximate. He talks about being proximate, being close, being engaged, being fully intact with what you are involved in. And so as we talk about building community today, we're talking about not just existing in the same room. What does that look like? That means that when I look across this, I should not see a sea of white right there. I shouldn't see a sea of white right there. I shouldn't see a sea of black right here. I shouldn't see a sea of black right here. You all can't see from where I'm standing from, but that's what it looks like. It's a sea of white right there. It's a sea of white right there. How do we come to build community if all we ever do is stay in our organization or stay in our group? If I bring it back home, those are girders right there. Those are beams right there. There are columns right here. But at no point does it look like connection. I see no nails. I see no nuts and bolts. I see nothing that I can wrench together. And so we have to find reasons and find ways to be proximate with each other, because for the most part, it seems as though everything we do right now has become transactional. The way we pay our bills, the way we use each other's Netflix accounts, the way we position ourselves at church, transactional. The way we meet people in our classrooms, transactional. If it's something that you can't give me right now, then you don't need to be a part of my daily encounter. Transactional. And so how do we look at that when we're trying to build community and be proximate? I want you to repeat after me. It's decision time. Come on. Repeat after me. It's decision time. Just this side of the room, it's decision time. This side of the room, it's decision time. It's time for us to decide who we as the University of Arkansas, who we as Northwest Arkansas, who we as Arkansas Collective, who we as the United States of America decide. Who are we going to be? Are we going to allow politics? Are we going to allow fear? Are we going to allow hatred, ignorance, bigotry, racism? Are we going to allow these things to keep us living in chaos? Or will we seek to build community? So as every pastor's son always learns to get from his dad, you got to have 3 points for the people. So I got 3 points for the people this morning. All these are inspired by Dr. King from his works, from his action, from his speeches. And so point number one, I'm going to go through all of them and then actually dive into them. So point number one, we have to understand that there is a fierce urgency for now. There is a fierce urgency for now. Number two, moving the idea of inclusion from being aesthetic to becoming systemic. Moving the idea of inclusion from being aesthetic to being systemic. And last but not least, building community requires ICPM. Building community requires ICPM. I'll get there when it's time. So first, I want to actually read some work you'll turn with me in your Bibles to A Testament of Time by the work of Dr. King. He talks about a myth of time. I'll read it for you here. It says, this is King's word, it says, "It is also a revolt against what I often call the myth of time. We hear this quite often, that only time can solve this problem, that if we will only be patient and only pray, which we must do, we must be patient and we must pray. But there are those who say, just do these things and wait for time, and time will solve the problem. Well, the people who argue this do not themselves realize that time is neutral, that it can be used constructively or destructively. At points, the people of ill will, the segregationists, have used time much more effectively than the people of goodwill. Time. We can't keep waiting for time to pass by thinking that all of our issues are going to go away. I can't think that just time will allow me to come back. This is my second one in 4, so book me again 2024, I'll be around. I can't expect just time to get this sea of white faces to merge with this sea of black faces, for this sea of black faces to merge with that sea of white faces. There has to be something in that. We can't keep waiting for time. Why can't we wait? Because there is a criminal justice system that continuously targets for the last several decades black and brown people and black and brown communities, keeping them and keeping their families disinherited and up against the wall. Why can't we wait? Because there is a healthcare system that prides itself more on profit than seeing the deliverance and the healing of people. Why can't we wait? Because there is an immigration system that doesn't mind, and there is people who don't mind things are happening in the immigration system where we have kids locked in cages, where we have kids being taken from their parents. An immigration system that allows the European to come here with no cost of their own, but allowing anyone to come up from below the border. There is a crisis. Why can't we wait? Because there are government leaders who are more concerned about maintaining their power than upholding the core values that all of us have elected them to uphold. Why can't we wait? Because this region of Arkansas is plagued with resources, plagued with surplus, but we still have people cold, hungry, and looking for a place to stay. Why can't we wait? Because there are students at this university who are still affected by racism, bigotry, microaggressions on a daily basis. So you ask me, why can't we wait? We have to be understanding that there is a fierce urgency of now. Dr. King talks about if you don't act now, at some point, if you don't learn to coexist, you will find ways to annihilate each other. We have to get to the point where we are understanding that days like today exist so that we can continue to push the agenda forward. It's at times where a lot of people are losing hope, where we have to move with the urgency of now. At times like this, where facts and truth are constantly called into question, we always have to look at the urgency of now. At a time where the most dangerous places to go are to church and to school, we have to call into question, is it time now? Do we have the urgency of time? Point number 2. The idea, the trend, and the acceptance of diversity, inclusion, equity, access, plus. There's so many things right now that we as a society are embracing. We have embraced this idea of diversity. We have embraced this idea of inclusion. And so what I'm asking us today, as we have a lot of leaders in those areas, is are we going to move from the standpoint to where we say inclusion, we say diversity, we say equity? Are these things going to maintain its aesthetic appeal? I can recall being at a oil company for an internship following my sophomore, junior, and senior year in undergrad. Every single time I would go, I was always in the picture. But I was one of 67 interns and the only person of color in the internship. Always got to be in the picture, always got to be in the middle. And so for a 19-year-old, that's pretty cool. This Fortune 10 company that has me on the front of their website, has me on the front of their marketing material. But what does that really mean? Are we systemically looking to make this a real reality of inclusion? I want to read you one more, another thing from Dr. King. He wrote a book. This is his last published work. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? He says the practical cost of change for the nation up to this point has been cheap. It's a lot to read, so I'm going to paraphrase it. He says the works that we've done to gain voter registration, the works that we've done to allow people to sit anywhere they want to on the bus is cheap. Cheap. Things that we praise all day on days like today. Oh, Dr. King was down there in Montgomery and got the people to sit wherever they want to on the bus. You know what he called it? He called it cheap. Why would you call great works like that? You fought, you died, and a lot of people lost their lives and lost their belongings, all trying to do what he referred to as cheap. It was cheap because what did it do? It made people have to coexist. It allowed a black face to sit next to a white face on the bus, but at no point did it make sure that that black person and that white person got to know each other. At no point did the work that he did, as he came to realize that there was nothing that was done to really bind everybody together. He calls it cheap. I went to North Carolina A&T State University for undergrad in Greensboro, North Carolina. And we pride ourselves on the history of the Greensboro Four. And I remember watching a documentary. Franklin McCain said, you know, I sat there and we marched and we sat in and we marched and we sat in. People spit in our faces. We got eggs thrown at us. And we marched and we sat in just so that we could have a seat at the table. And do you know what? That pie was nasty, isn't it? That was the nastiest pie ever. And so as we move into being okay with things being aesthetic and seeking that things become systemic, black people need not only to be loved, they also need justice. We'll read something from King as well. He said, the white liberal must see that the Negro needs not only love, but also justice. It is not enough to say we love Negroes. We have many Negro friends. They must demand justice for Negroes. Love that does not satisfy justice is not love at all. It is merely a sentimental affection, little more than what one would have for a pet. Love at its best is justice concretized. Love is unconditional. It is not conditional upon one's staying in his place or watering down his demands in order to be considered respectable. He who contends that, quote, used to love the Negro but did not truly love him in the beginning, because this love was conditioned upon the Negro's limited demand for justice. Are we demanding justice for those who are systemically disinherited? Are we demanding justice for those who are systemically, and oftentimes they're labeled as minority or underrepresented? I'm reminded of the experience that I had working to condemn the flying of the Confederate flag at Bike's Wheels and Barbecue in 2016. I'm also reminded of the majority, if not all white, student senate who was here at the time, who tabled my resolution after it had been doctored twice, saying that we can't sign this petition or this resolution because what would it say to the Southern people who donate to our university if we sign this into law here at the university. I am reminded of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile and their deaths a day apart from each other. I'm also reminded going to a majority, if not all-white, civic organization, and that civic organization making completely no mention of the matter. Are we on the agenda? Is justice for all people on the agenda? If all lives matter, is our justice on the agenda? It has to be on the, if it's not on the agenda, then time will continue to pass and we won't continue to matter. And so today, days like today become a formality and not a work of movement, a work of action. I'm also reminded of the black students here and my experience as a black student, African American student in particular. But I'm reminded of the work that it takes away from me pursuing my degree to be contracted out by the university to teach its majority students how to not have microaggressions. Some of y'all might be able to relate, but I'm reminded about, a student who asked if I could sit on the panel and said, hey, I want to plan this panel discussion to teach the people in my dorms that you shouldn't have racist acts, or you shouldn't have these types of microaggressions. And my argument back was, well, why are you wasting the time that you should be putting your energy into your calculus, or putting your energy into your nursing assignments, or putting your energy into your business assignments? So I'm asking this university now to stop contracting out our students, to teach other students how they are to act in a space that is saying it's diverse, a space that is saying it's inclusive, a place that is saying that it has equal access and opportunity, a place that is saying that it's going to have equity for all those who call the hogs. So we have to get to a point where mission statements and cute keywords on websites do not solely define what we mean by inclusion. But inclusion means that in everything that we do, where we sit in class, how we pass by our classmates, how we interact within the community, how we interact within our workspace, how we interact in our organizations, we always look to have that be a core value within those spaces. Point number 3. As you can see, I'm almost done, so we're working, we're moving. Build community requires ICPM. Building community in and outside the classroom, in and outside the university, in and outside of our workplace, in and outside of our organizations require ICPM. Being intentional means it's being done on purpose. At the beginning of 2019, I went on a quest to have 100 cups of coffee with 100 different people. And there's about 4 people in the room that I had coffee with. And it was exciting to be able to meet someone without there being an ask. Has that ever happened for any of you all? You ever met somebody just to meet, as opposed to saying, hey, let's chop it up, but I need you to write this letter of recommendation for me. Hey, let's chop it up, but I kind of need a scholarship, so at some point I might have to ask you for it, but if you treat lunch, that's fine too. At some point we have to get to the point where we are intentional about just meeting each other. When we do that, the white space is there, and the white space is there, and the black space is here, and the black space is here. We find ways to truly be one of the top 5 communities in the country. We can truly say, hey, Fayetteville, top 5 place to stay. Why? Because we are intentional about knowing each other. We are intentional about knowing Jim. We're intentional about knowing Dante. We're intentional about everything that we want to do. We are intentional about it. That's I. Consistent. It's cool to do this today. It's MLK Day. We're going to put something on social media. We're going to look up whatever he said back in the 60s and put it on our Instagram page. It's going to be real cute. Well, what happens when today is over and classes start back up? in the larger Greek sorority and fraternity houses on the outskirts of campus, and you all go back to your shelters there, and other people go to their shelters there. What kind of consistency are we going to have about being intentional about building relationship? P, persistent. After there is an event that happens where everybody's up in awe and everybody's pissed off because something crazy happened and now there's tension. Are we going to continue to be consistent about being intentional and persist through the chaos that will happen throughout the rest of the spring semester? Are we going to be persistent? And last but not least, we have to be maladjusted. King talks about being maladjusted. I'm going to read this whole thing because it's powerful. He says, modern psychology has a word that is probably used more than any other word. It is the word maladjusted. Now, we all should seek to live a well-adjusted life in order to avoid neurotic and schizophrenic personalities. But there are some things within our social order to which I am proud to be maladjusted, and to which I call upon you to be maladjusted. I never intend to adjust myself to segregation and discrimination. I never intend to adjust myself to mob rule. I never intend to adjust myself to the tragic effects of the methods of physical violence and to tragic militarism. I call upon you to be maladjusted to such things. I call upon you to be maladjusted to such things. What are we going to be maladjusted to? Are we going to become maladjusted to homelessness? Are we going to become maladjusted to the fact that we still have students in this surplus area that are on free and reduced lunch? Are we going to be maladjusted to the fact that there are still poor systems of education all going throughout the state of Arkansas? Are we going to be maladjusted to the fact that we sit under the leadership that we currently live under? Are we at some point ever going to become maladjusted? So, in order to build community, it requires us to have ICPM. We must be intentional. We must be consistent, persistent, and maladjustable. Number two, we have to move from this idea that inclusion is not going to just become and stay aesthetic, but move to be systemic. And we have to move so that we are looking at the fierce urgency of now. How long? Not long. Because we do this thing every year. And every year we got to get better. How long? Not long. Because you wouldn't spend your day off today doing this if you didn't feel like it. How long? Not long. Because we are going to do this thing because as the best university in this country, we lead in multiple ways. And so we can lead in this way by building community. How long? Not long. Because the leadership at this university is going to make sure that action is taking place. How long? Not long. Because these beautiful faces, you all are beautiful people and I love you. How long? Not long. Because the time has to be now. Because we have only just a minute, only 60 seconds, and it forced upon us, can't refuse it. We didn't seek it, we didn't choose it. But it's up to us to use it. We must suffer if we lose it, give account if we abuse it. Just a tiny, tiny, tiny little minute. But I promise, eternity is it. That's my time.